License and registration, now!
What for? I wasn't speeding.
Your taillight is out. Here's the ticket.
This is ridiculous. I'm not paying.
Sign it or you're coming with me.
Fine.
Ma'am, you were speeding. License and registration.
Officer, I was keeping up with traffic.
I understand, but you were over the limit. Here's your ticket.
This is unbelievable.
You can contest it in court. Drive safe. Ma'am, you were speeding. This is a ticket.
Speeding? I was only going 5 over.
Sign here, please.
This is ridiculous. I can't believe this.
It's the law, ma'am. Sign it.
Fine.
Officer Travis Harlan pressed his palm against Lena Caldwell's driver's side window. His wedding ring tapped the glass 3 times. License and registration. Your windows are illegally tinted. That's a $250 citation and vehicle impound. Lena sat perfectly still in her Honda Accord. She was 38, dressed in business casual, hands at 10 and 2. Interstate 40 stretched empty in both directions. Travis leaned closer, aviator sunglasses hiding his eyes. "Ma'am, I'm trying to help you understand the law." His tone dripped with condescension. Lena had heard it before. This is one of those black stories that reminds us how real-life stories unfold when power meets prejudice. Powerful stories like this happen every day across America. Have you ever been punished for something you didn't do while the person humiliating you smiled the whole time? Travis stood with his thumbs hooked in his belt. He was mid-40s, white, with 19 years on the force. His patrol car sat angled behind Lena's Honda, lights still flashing red and blue against the afternoon sun. "You know why I pulled you over?" he asked. Lena kept her voice level. "No, officer. I was going 52 in a 55 zone." "Your windows," Travis gestured vaguely. "Can't see inside. Safety hazard. Step out of the vehicle." Lena hesitated for just a second. She wore a navy blazer. A small pin decorated her lapel, the Highway Patrol Training Academy emblem, gold and silver. Travis's eyes passed right over it. He either didn't notice or didn't care. "Ma'am, I need you to step out now." Lena unbuckled her seatbelt and opened the door. Travis stepped back, but not far. He stood close enough that she could smell his coffee breath. Too close, deliberately close. "Is this your car?" he asked. The question hung in the air like an accusation. Lena felt the familiar tightness in her chest. "Yes, registered in my name." "You got proof of purchase title?" She kept her paperwork organized in the glove box. Always had. She leaned back into the car and retrieved the folder. Travis took it from her hands and held the documents up to the sunlight. He squinted, flipped pages slowly, made a show of examining every detail. His radio crackled. Another officer's voice came through. "Unit 7. What's your 20? Travis pressed the button on his shoulder. "Just handling a routine stop, tinted windows, you know the type." Lena's jaw tightened. She said nothing. Travis walked back to his cruiser, boots crunching gravel. He sat in his car for some time. Lena's registration was clean. Her insurance was current. Her inspection was up to date. While Travis ran her plates, 2 other cars passed. Both had tinted windows. One was a white Lexus SUV. The other was a silver Mercedes sedan. Both drivers were white. Travis glanced up, waved them through without a second look. Neither car slowed down. Lena noticed. She always noticed these touching stories of selective enforcement. The patterns became impossible to ignore once you saw them. Travis finally emerged from his cruiser. He carried a citation book and a small device, a tint meter. He pressed it against Lena's driver's side window. The digital display read 32%. "State maximum is 30%, Travis said. "You're over. That's a citation." Lena spoke carefully. "Officer, these windows came factory installed. I purchased this vehicle from the dealership years ago. They assured me everything was compliant." "Doesn't matter what they told you. The law is the law." Travis started writing. His pen moved with exaggerated slowness. Lena watched 3 more cars pass. All had windows she couldn't see through, all white drivers. None stopped. "I'd also like to cite you for failure to comply," Travis added without looking up. "Failure to comply?" Lena's voice stayed calm. "I've handed you everything you requested. You hesitated when I asked you to step out. That's non-compliance in my book." Travis tore the citation from his pad. "Sign here." Lena didn't take the pen. "This is discriminatory. 3 cars with darker tints just passed. You didn't stop any of them." Travis's face hardened. His voice dropped to something colder. You accusing me of racism? That's a separate issue. Sign the citation or I impound the vehicle right now. Lena pulled out her phone. Travis's hand moved to his hip. Put that phone away or I'll add obstruction charges. It's my legal right to record this interaction. I'm not interfering with your duties. I'm giving you a lawful order. Lena kept the phone out. She wasn't filming yet, just holding it. The threat was enough. Travis's jaw worked. He reached for his radio again. Need a supervisor at mile marker 67, Interstate 40. They stood in silence while they waited. Lena noticed the pin on her lapel again. Travis still hadn't looked at it closely. Or maybe he had and didn't care what it meant. The sun beat down. Traffic hummed past. Nobody else stopped to help. A second patrol car arrived minutes later. Sergeant Paul Kowalski stepped out. He was late 50s, white, with a thick mustache and a permanent scowl. Travis walked over to meet him. They spoke in low voices, too quiet for Lena to hear. Paul glanced at her once, then back to Travis. He nodded. Paul approached Lena with his thumbs in his belt, the same stance as Travis. What's the problem here, ma'am? Lena explained calmly. She pointed out the tint reading, barely over threshold. She mentioned the other vehicles. She kept her tone professional. Paul listened without changing expression. Officer Harlan has discretion to enforce traffic laws as he sees fit. If you don't like the citation, you can contest it in court. For now, you need to sign. I'd like to file a formal complaint. Paul sighed. It was theatrical, designed to make her feel like she was wasting everyone's time. You can do that at the station right now. Sign the citation or we tow the vehicle. Your choice. Lena looked at both officers. Travis stood with his arms crossed. Paul had his hand resting on his belt near his radio. Behind them, a pickup truck slowed down. A young black man in the driver's seat held up his phone, filming through the window. Travis noticed and waved him off aggressively. The truck sped up and disappeared down the highway. I'm requesting a supervisor, Lena said. Paul's mustache twitched. Ma'am, I am the supervisor. A third patrol car arrived shortly after. Officer Sarah Bennett stepped out. She was younger, maybe early 30s, white, with her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked between Travis, Paul, and Lena with obvious confusion. What do we have? Sarah asked. Travis answered before Paul could. Tinted windows, 32%. Legal limit is 30. Driver is refusing to sign the citation and threatening to file a complaint. Sarah walked over to Lena's Honda. She examined the windows without touching them. Then she picked up Travis's tint meter from where he'd set it on the hood. She pressed it against the glass. 32% appeared on the display. She pressed it again in a different spot. 31%. A third time, 30%. Sarah turned to Paul. She kept her voice low, but Lena could still hear. This is barely over threshold. Readings vary by location on the glass. Is this really worth? Paul cut her off. We back our officers, Bennett. If you have a problem with that, wait in your vehicle. Sarah's face flushed. She looked at Lena for a long moment. Then she walked back to her patrol car and sat in the driver's seat. She didn't leave, just sat there watching. Travis moved closer to Lena again. I'm going to ask you one more time. Hand over that phone. That recording is evidence in an official investigation. What investigation? Lena asked. You pulled me over for a window tint. You're refusing a lawful order. That's obstruction. I can arrest you right now. Paul stepped forward. He pulled his own phone out. I'm calling for a tow truck. We're impounding this vehicle under California Vehicle Code Section 22,651. You'll be able to retrieve it from the impound lot after you pay the citation and all associated fees. Lena felt the situation slipping. These real-life stories always followed the same script. Escalation, humiliation, intimidation. She'd taught seminars on this exact scenario. Now she was living it. You should call your chief before you do that, Lena said quietly. Travis laughed. It was sharp and ugly. The chief lady? You think name-dropping scares me? I've been doing this 19 years. I've seen every trick. I'm not name-dropping. I'm giving you a professional courtesy. Paul crossed his arms. Professional courtesy? What are you, a lawyer? Something like that. Travis smirked. He looked at Paul. They shared the same expression. Two men who'd heard it all before. Another person trying to talk their way out of a ticket. Another person who thought they were special. The tow truck will be here in minutes, Paul said. He'd made the call. Lena heard the dispatcher confirm on his radio. You can wait here or we can give you a ride to the station. Your choice. A white SUV pulled onto the shoulder 30 feet behind the patrol cars. A middle-aged couple got out. The man held up his phone. "Everything okay here, miss?" Travis turned on them. "This is official police business. Move along. We just want to make sure." I said, "Move along now." The husband kept filming. The wife stood beside him, arms crossed. They didn't get back in their vehicle. Travis's face reddened. He took 2 steps toward them. The couple finally retreated to their SUV, but the man kept his phone pointed out the window as they drove away. Another vehicle slowed, a black teenager in a pickup truck. He had his phone out too, filming through the passenger window. Travis's hand moved to his pepper spray. "Keep moving!" Travis shouted. The teenager accelerated. His tires kicked up dust. Paul spoke into his radio again. "Dispatch, this is Sergeant Kowalski. I need one more unit at mile marker 67. We have a possible disturbance, multiple civilians stopping." Lena stood perfectly still. She knew how this worked. Any movement could be interpreted as aggression. Any word could be twisted into resistance. She kept her hands visible. Her phone was in her right hand. Screen dark. "Ma'am, I'm giving you a direct order," Travis said. "Hand me that phone. You're interfering with an investigation." "I haven't recorded anything. I'm just holding my phone." "That's evidence. Give it to me or I'm placing you under arrest." Paul stepped closer now. Both officers flanked her. Sarah watched from her patrol car, her face tight with discomfort. She didn't intervene. She didn't help. She just watched these touching stories unfold like so many others. The tow truck rumbled into view. It was a large flatbed with Kowalski and Son Towing painted on the side. The driver was a younger man, maybe mid-20s, with the same thick build as Paul. He parked behind the patrol cars and got out. "Hey, Uncle Paul," the driver called. "What do we got, Uncle?" Lena filed that detail away. Paul owned the towing company. This was a family business. The citations, the impounds, the fees, it all fed back into the same pockets. "Impound, Shaband," Paul said. "Standard procedure." The driver unhooked chains from the flatbed. Travis held out his hand for Lena's keys. "Give me your keys, ma'am." Lena looked at both officers, at Paul's nephew preparing the tow truck, at Sarah Bennett sitting in her patrol car doing nothing, at the empty highway stretching in both directions. She pulled out her phone. Travis's hand went to his gun, not drawing it, just resting on the grip. "Don't," he warned. "I'm calling my husband," Lena said. "He's working today. I thought he should know his officers are about to impound his wife's car." Travis's hand stayed on his gun. "Your husband's a cop?" "Not exactly." Lena pressed a number on her phone. She put it on speaker. It rang twice. A man's voice answered, calm and professional. "Chief Victor Caldwell, Highway Patrol, Northern District. Who am I speaking with?" Travis's face went white. Paul took a half step back. Sarah got out of her patrol car, eyes wide. Lena kept her voice steady. "It's me. I'm at Interstate 40, mile marker 67. Officers Harlan and Kowalski issued a citation for window tint, 32%. They're impounding the vehicle." "Put Officer Harlan on the phone." Travis's hand fell away from his gun. He reached for the phone like it might burn him. Lena handed it over. Travis brought it to his ear, no longer on speaker. "Yes, sir." His voice had changed completely. "Badge number 2847, sir." A pause. Travis's throat worked. "Yes, sir. I measured the tint, 32%. Legal threshold is 30, sir." Another pause. Longer this time. Travis's face went from white to red. Yes, sir. I understand, sir." He handed the phone back to Lena without looking at her. The tow truck driver stood frozen, chains dangling from his hands. Paul stared at the ground. Sarah stood beside her patrol car, one hand over her mouth. The voice on the phone spoke again. Lena didn't put it on speaker, but her husband's words carried in the silence. "I'll see them both Monday morning. Get home safe." "I will." Lena ended the call. Nobody moved. Travis stood with his arms at his sides. Paul had taken 3 steps back, putting distance between himself and the situation. The tow truck driver looked at his uncle, then at the officers, then started rewinding his chains back onto the truck without being told. "Ma'am, Mrs. Caldwell." Travis's voice came out strangled. "I didn't know." Lena cut him off. Her voice stayed level, but something harder edged beneath it. "You didn't need to know who I was married to. Officer Harlan, you needed to do your job fairly. I was just following protocol." "Protocol?" Lena's eyebrow rose. 3 vehicles with darker tints passed while you ran my plates. All white drivers. None stopped. Is that protocol? Travis opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His face had gone red again. Blotchy with shame or anger or both. Paul tried to salvage something. Mrs. Caldwell, we were acting in good faith. Good faith? Lena turned to face him. Sergeant Kowalski, you've supervised this district for years. In that time, how many complaints have crossed your desk about selective enforcement? Paul's mustache twitched. I don't recall. 4 formal complaints in the last 3 years, all filed by Black or Latino drivers, all dismissed without investigation, all involving Officer Harlan. Lena's voice never rose. She didn't need to raise it. Do you recall now? Sarah Bennett stepped forward. She looked like she wanted to say something, then thought better of it. She stared at Lena with dawning recognition. Wait, Sarah said slowly. You're the instructor, the bias reduction seminar. Last quarter, you led the training. Lena nodded once. I did. Travis's face went through several expressions: confusion, realization, horror. You teach at the academy? Lena reached into her car. Travis flinched. She pulled out her glove box and retrieved a laminated badge. She held it up so all 3 officers could see clearly. Lena Caldwell, JD Civil Rights Liaison, California Highway Patrol. The title hung in the air like a verdict. Sarah closed her eyes. Travis looked like he might be sick. Paul's face had gone gray. I'm not just the chief's wife, Lena said quietly. I'm the department's civil rights attorney, hired years ago after the DOJ consent decree. You all signed documents acknowledging my role. You all completed my training modules. She reached back into her car and pulled out her briefcase. It was leather, professional, monogrammed with her initials. She opened it and removed a manila folder. Inside were printed spreadsheets, charts, graphs, all color-coded, all meticulously labeled. I've been conducting random compliance audits on traffic stops for months, Lena continued. Your district was flagged for racial disparities. 68% of window tint citations issued to black drivers, despite black drivers being only 22% of the traffic population. She laid the first spreadsheet on the hood of her Honda. Travis and Paul stared at it like it was a bomb. Officer Harlan, these are your stop records. 18 months of data, 67 citations for window tint, 51 issued to black or Latino drivers. Would you like to explain the statistical anomaly? Travis's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I stopped who I stopped based on visual assessment. Visual assessment. Lena's tone didn't change, but the words cut like broken glass. Your district population is 18% black, 12% Latino, yet 76% of your tint citations target minorities. That's not visual assessment, officer. That's a pattern. She pulled out a second document. This one had photographs attached, screenshots from dashboard cameras, timestamps, GPS coordinates. May 15th, you stopped a black woman on Highway 101. Citation for tinted windows. Dashboard camera shows a white pickup truck passing in the opposite direction minutes earlier. Tinted windows, no citation. June 3rd, you stopped a Latino man for the same violation. Dashboard camera shows 2 white vehicles with identical tints passing within minutes. Neither stopped. Lena placed each document on the hood, the evidence mounted like bricks in a wall. Should I continue? Travis said nothing. Paul looked at his nephew, who was now sitting in the tow truck with the engine off. Sarah stood frozen. Real-life stories like this didn't usually have documentation. Usually, it was one person's word against another. Usually, the badge won. Not today. Lena wasn't finished. She pulled out another laminated card from her briefcase. This one was smaller, the size of a credit card. She handed it to Sarah, who read it and passed it to Paul without comment. It was Lena's bar card. Licensed attorney in California and New York. Specialization in civil rights law. She'd graduated from Yale Law School, clerked for a federal judge, worked at the ACLU for years before the Highway Patrol hired her. I was driving to a regional meeting today, Lena said, meeting with district supervisors about these exact statistics, about the need for better oversight and accountability. I wasn't conducting a sting operation. I wasn't testing anyone. I was simply driving to work. She looked at Travis. You targeted me organically. That's the problem, Officer Harlan. That's exactly the problem. Travis's voice came out as a whisper. I didn't mean. Intent doesn't erase impact. Lena gathered her documents and placed them back in her briefcase. She retrieved her keys from where she'd set them on the hood. Travis had never actually taken them from her. The whole impound threat had evaporated. "Am I free to go?" Lena asked. Paul nodded. He couldn't speak. Sarah stepped aside to clear the way. Travis stood rooted to the spot. Lena got back in her Honda. She adjusted her rear-view mirror, started the engine. The window was still down. She looked at Travis one more time. "You signed a certificate of completion for my bias reduction training in October. The final exam asked you to identify warning signs of selective enforcement. Do you remember what you wrote?" Travis shook his head mutely. "You wrote that the primary warning sign is statistical disparity in citation patterns by race. You scored 92% on that exam." Lena put the car in drive. "Monday morning, Chief's office, 7 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." She pulled back onto Interstate 40. The patrol cars sat flashing in her rearview mirror until they disappeared around a curve. Lena drove exactly 52 miles per hour. Her hand stayed steady on the wheel. Her phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. She answered. "I'm okay." Her husband's voice filled the car. "I know you are. I'm still going to have them in my office first thing Monday. I know you will." "Did you get it on camera?" "Every word." "Good." A pause. "I love you. Drive safe." "Love you too." Lena ended the call. She drove for another stretch before pulling into a rest stop. Only then did her hands start shaking. She sat in the parking lot for minutes, breathing slowly, letting the adrenaline drain. Powerful stories about police misconduct filled the news every week. Touching stories of racial profiling, black stories of humiliation and anger. But this story would be different. This story had documentation, witnesses, evidence, authority on her side. This story would have consequences. Lena pulled out her phone and sent a text to 3 people. The Highway Patrol's public information officer, the head of the department's internal affairs division, and her personal attorney. The message was simple. "Incident today requires formal review. Have video evidence and witness statements. Documents attached. We'll file report Monday." She attached the photographs from the bystanders' phones. The white couple in the SUV had already posted their video to social media. It had been shared hundreds of times in the last stretch. The teenager in the pickup truck had sent his video to a local news station. The story was already out there, already spreading, already becoming something bigger than one traffic stop on a Saturday afternoon. Lena pulled back onto the highway. She had a meeting to get to. She was already late, but she'd have a hell of an opening statement when she arrived. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Chief Victor Caldwell sat behind his mahogany desk early. The Highway Patrol headquarters building was quiet. Most officers wouldn't arrive for another hour. Victor preferred it this way. He did his best thinking in silence. Lena sat in a separate chair to his right, not beside him, not behind him, to the side. The positioning was deliberate. She wasn't here as his wife. She was here as the civil rights liaison, professional, separate, equal. A knock came exactly on time. Victor checked his watch. "Come in." Travis Harlan entered first. His uniform was pressed sharp enough to cut paper. His face was pale. Paul Kowalski followed, looking years older than he had on the highway. Both men stood at attention. Neither was invited to sit. Victor let the silence stretch. He opened a folder on his desk and pretended to read, though he'd memorized every word hours ago. The overhead lights hummed. Someone's footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Finally, Victor looked up. "Officer Harlan, in the last 18 months, you've issued 67 citations for window tint. 51 were to black or Latino drivers. Care to explain?" Travis's throat worked. "Sir, I stop who I stop based on visual assessment." "Visual assessment?" Victor repeated the words without inflection. "Your district's population is 18% black, 12% Latino, yet 76% of your tint citations target minorities. Visual assessment." Travis had no answer. Victor hadn't expected one. He turned to the wall behind his desk where a screen displayed a PowerPoint presentation. Lena had prepared it. 23 slides, every one damning. Victor clicked to the first slide. It showed a bar graph, tint citations by race versus population demographics for Travis's district. The disparity was stark, impossible to dismiss as coincidence. "Officer Harlan, do you see this data?" Victor asked. "Yes, sir." "Do you dispute its accuracy?" "No, sir." "Do you have any explanation for this pattern?" Silence. Travis stared at the graph like it might change if he looked hard enough. It didn't. Victor clicked to the next slide. This one showed Travis's stop patterns compared to the district average. 5 other officers worked the same area. None showed similar disparities. One officer, a black woman named Officer Chen, had actually stopped more vehicles, but issued citations proportional to the population demographics. This is your pattern versus Officer Chen's pattern, Victor said. Same district, same roads, same traffic volume, different outcomes. Why? I don't know, sir. You don't know. Victor set down the remote. Sergeant Kowalski, you've supervised Officer Harlan for years. How many formal complaints about selective enforcement have crossed your desk in that time? Paul's voice came out rough. I don't have the exact number. Lena spoke for the first time. Her tone was neutral, professional. 4 formal complaints in 3 years, all from minority drivers, all dismissed without investigation. She opened her tablet and projected a new image onto the wall screen. It showed 4 complaint forms. Each one bore Paul's signature at the bottom. Complaint dismissed. Insufficient evidence. Insufficient evidence, Lena read aloud. December. Complaint from Marcus Johnson, black male, age 34, claimed he was stopped for tinted windows while white drivers with darker tints were not stopped. Dashboard camera footage shows 3 white vehicles passing during the stop. None stopped. She swiped to the next form. April. Complaint from Rosa Martinez, Latina female, age 28. Same allegation. Dashboard camera shows 2 white vehicles passing. Neither stopped. Swipe. September. Complaint from Deshaun Williams, black male, age 19. Same allegation. Dashboard camera shows 4 white vehicles. None stopped. Swipe. February. Complaint from Sarah Okonkwo, black female, age 41. Same allegation. Dashboard camera shows... I get the picture, Paul interrupted. Lena looked at him. Do you, Sergeant? Because you dismissed every single one of these complaints without review, without investigation, without even watching the dashboard footage that clearly showed the pattern Officer Harlan established. Paul's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. There was nothing to say. The evidence spoke for itself. Victor leaned forward. His voice stayed level, but something cold edged beneath it. Under the DOJ consent decree signed years ago, this department agreed to federal monitoring for racially biased policing. We have years of oversight. Do you understand what that means? Both officers nodded. Yes, sir. Then you understand that patterns like this threaten our compliance certification. You understand that if the DOJ sees this data, and they will see this data, they can extend monitoring for another 5 years. They can impose fines. They can mandate additional reforms. They can dismantle this department and rebuild it under federal control. Victor clicked to another slide. This one showed financial projections, dollar amounts with many zeros. Lena had worked with the department's budget director to calculate the potential costs. Federal monitoring costs this department $1.2 million annually. Victor continued. Extended monitoring would cost millions over years. That's millions we can't spend on equipment, training, or officer salaries. That's millions because 2 officers couldn't do their jobs fairly. Travis looked at the floor. Paul stared at the wall. Neither spoke. Lena pulled up another document on her tablet. This is California Vehicle Code Section 26708. It specifies the legal requirements for window tinting. It also specifies the enforcement guidelines. Officers are instructed to use calibrated meters to document measurements and to apply enforcement consistently. She looked at Travis. You used a calibrated meter. You documented the measurement, but you didn't apply enforcement consistently. That's not a mistake, Officer Harlan. That's not an oversight. That's a civil rights violation. Travis's voice cracked. Ma'am, I never meant... Intent doesn't matter, Lena said. Her tone stayed professional but firm. Impact matters. 4 people filed complaints. 4 people had their time wasted, their dignity attacked, their faith in law enforcement damaged because of you, because Sergeant Kowalski enabled you. She pulled out a thick binder. It was labeled Harlan Audit, Full Review. She set it on Victor's desk with a heavy thud. This is every traffic stop you've conducted in the last 24 months, every citation, every warning, every field contact. 2 independent analysts reviewed the data. Both reached the same conclusion. Statistically significant racial disparity across 11 different violation categories. Travis's face crumbled. 11. Tinted windows was just the most obvious, Lena said. You also show disparities in stops for failure to signal, excessive speed, failure to maintain lane, expired registration, broken taillights, loud exhaust, air fresheners obstructing view, license plate frames, and 2 others. She opened the binder and showed the first page. It was a summary chart. Every category showed the same pattern: disproportionate stops of minority drivers. This isn't unconscious bias, Lena continued. This is systematic targeting. This is the kind of pattern that gets departments sued, that costs taxpayers millions, that destroys community trust. Victor stood. Both officers stiffened. Here's what's going to happen. Officer Harlan, you're suspended without pay for 30 days pending a full investigation. If the investigation confirms these findings, you'll be terminated and referred to the State Post Commission for decertification. Travis's eyes widened. Chief, please. I have 19 years. Then you should have known better. Victor's voice cut like steel. Sergeant Kowalski, you're demoted to patrol officer effective immediately. Your supervisory credentials are revoked for 12 months minimum. You'll also complete 40 hours of bias training taught by my wife. Paul's face flushed red. You can't. I can, and I am. Victor walked around his desk. He stood directly in front of both officers. You'll also both participate in a video training module for the entire department. Your faces, your names, your mistakes. Every officer in this department will watch you explain what you did wrong and why it matters. That's called accountability. Neither officer spoke. The weight of consequences settled over them like a blanket. You're dismissed, Victor said. Report to HR for processing. You have 1 hour to clear your personal items from your desks. Security will escort you out. Travis and Paul turned to leave. Travis's shoulders shook. Paul walked with his head down. Sarah Bennett waited in the hallway outside. She'd witnessed the whole meeting through the open door. She stepped aside to let them pass. Victor watched them go. Then he turned to Lena. Think it'll stick? The data doesn't lie, Lena said. It'll stick. The video went viral within days. The white couple's footage from the SUV, the teenager's recording from his pickup truck. Both showed the same scene from different angles. Lena standing calm while Travis and Paul escalated. Someone edited the clips together with captions explaining who Lena was. The video hit millions of views quickly. Local news stations picked it up, then national outlets. By the next morning, Lena's phone wouldn't stop ringing. The headline on every news site read, some variation of the same story. Highway Patrol Chief's wife, targeted in racially biased stop. Officer suspended. Community groups demanded meetings. The NAACP regional director called Victor directly. The mayor's office requested a briefing. The DOJ compliance monitor sent an email flagged urgent. Victor held a press conference days later. Lena stood beside him in a navy suit. The press room was packed. Cameras from several stations lined the back wall. Reporters filled every seat. This incident represents a failure, Victor began. Not just a failure by one officer, but a systemic failure in oversight and accountability. My wife was targeted because of selective enforcement patterns we should have identified and addressed years ago. He outlined the audit findings, the statistical disparities, the dismissed complaints, the lack of supervisory review. The reporters took notes frantically. Cameras rolled. Effective immediately. This department is implementing comprehensive reforms, Victor continued. I'm announcing a 6-point plan to ensure this never happens again. Lena stepped forward. She handed out printed summaries to the reporters in the front row. The document was 3 pages, single-spaced, meticulously detailed. Point 1, Lena said, we're launching a real-time monitoring application. Every traffic stop will be logged immediately with demographic data, reason for stop, and outcome. The data will be reviewed weekly by an independent oversight committee. She clicked to the next slide on the screen behind them. It showed a mock-up of the app interface. Clean, simple, impossible to ignore. Point 2, all tint meters will be recalibrated monthly. Every reading will be logged with GPS coordinates and timestamps. No more discretionary enforcement. Click. Next slide showed the calibration schedule. Point 3, mandatory quarterly bias training for all officers and supervisors, not online modules. In-person workshops with external experts. Attendance is not optional. Point 4, we're establishing a community oversight board. 9 civilians selected to represent our district's demographics. They'll review complaint patterns and meet monthly with command staff. Their recommendations will be public record. Point 5. Random audit protocol for body cameras and dashboard footage. Dozens of stops per month reviewed for language, demeanor, and evidence of selective enforcement. Results published quarterly. Point 6. Disciplinary transparency. When complaints are sustained, the outcomes will be published online. No names, but patterns will be visible. The public deserves to know we're holding officers accountable. A reporter raised her hand. Mrs. Caldwell, some critics might say this goes too far, that it will make officers afraid to do their jobs. What's your response? Lena didn't hesitate. Officers should be afraid to violate people's civil rights. They should not be afraid to enforce the law fairly. These reforms protect good officers. They expose bad ones. If an officer can't do their job without racial bias, they shouldn't be doing the job at all. Another reporter stood. Chief Caldwell, what's happening with Officer Harlan and Sergeant Kowalski? Victor took that question. Officer Harlan remains suspended pending the full audit results. If the pattern holds, he'll be terminated. Sergeant Kowalski has been demoted and reassigned. Both outcomes are subject to our internal review process and union procedures. The press conference lasted some time. By the time it ended, the video had been clipped and shared across every social media platform. The 6-point reform plan trended on Twitter. Think pieces appeared in major newspapers. Not everyone approved. The police union released a statement calling the reforms overly punitive and demoralizing to hardworking officers. Conservative talk radio accused Lena of playing the race card. Anonymous comments on news articles called her everything from opportunist to worse. But other voices rose louder. Civil rights organizations praised the transparency. Police reform advocates held up the monitoring app as a national model. Stanford's Bias Research Lab reached out to partner on studying the reforms. Other departments started asking questions about implementation. Within weeks, Officer Sarah Bennett, the junior officer who'd questioned the stop, was promoted to lead the monitoring app program. Lena personally requested her. Sarah had shown moral courage when it mattered. That deserved recognition. The app itself launched in beta testing soon after. Lena secured a federal grant to fund development. The grant came from the Department of Justice's Community Policing Initiative. Several other departments in California licensed the technology before it even went live. Travis Harlan's full audit came back weeks after the incident. The pattern held across all 11 violation categories. The statistical analysis showed less than a 1% chance the disparities were random. Travis was given a choice: resign with his pension intact or face termination and decertification proceedings. He chose resignation. His letter was brief, professional. It included one line that Lena read several times. I never thought of myself as racist. I'm learning that intent doesn't erase impact. She didn't respond. Didn't need to. But she forwarded the letter to the Reform Task Force as a case study. Sometimes people learned, sometimes they didn't. But the system couldn't wait for individual enlightenment. The system had to change regardless. Paul Kowalski worked patrol for months before requesting early retirement. His nephew's towing company lost the department contract. A competitive bidding process awarded it to a minority-owned business instead. The reforms took hold slowly. The first quarterly report showed improvement. Racial disparities in traffic citations dropped 31%. The second report showed 48%. By the end of the first year, the monitoring app had logged thousands of traffic stops with statistically proportional outcomes. It wasn't perfect, but it was measurably better. And measurably better was how systemic change happened, one data point at a time. Years later, Lena testified before Congress. The House Judiciary Committee invited her to speak about police reform best practices. She wore the same Navy suit she'd worn at the press conference, the same highway patrol pin on her lapel. The hearing room was smaller than she'd expected, more intimate. Cameras still lined the walls, but the atmosphere felt less confrontational than she'd feared. Representatives from both parties asked questions. Some were hostile. Most were curious. A few seemed genuinely interested in solutions. Lena presented the data. She always presented the data. Years of monitoring results, statistical analysis showing sustained improvement. Testimonials from community members, cost-benefit breakdowns proving the reforms were financially sustainable. The key is transparency, Lena told the committee. Officers behave differently when they know their actions are being monitored and reviewed, not because they're afraid, but because accountability changes culture. Sunlight is the best disinfectant. A Republican congressman from Texas leaned into his microphone. Mrs. Caldwell, doesn't this kind of monitoring create an adversarial relationship between police and the communities they serve? Lena smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. Congressman, the adversarial relationship already existed. These reforms just make it visible, and once it's visible, we can fix it. The hearing lasted hours. C-SPAN broadcast it live. Clips circulated online. Lena's testimony was quoted in articles about police reform legislation pending in several states. Chief Victor Caldwell retired later. His replacement was a Latina woman who'd worked her way up through patrol, investigations, and command staff. She kept every one of Victor's reforms and added 3 more. The department became a case study taught at the FBI National Academy. Lena continued her civil rights work. She published a handbook, Quietly Powerful, Using Data to Dismantle Bias. It became required reading in dozens of police academies across states. She gave keynote speeches at conferences. She consulted with departments trying to implement similar reforms. Their daughter, 17 now, was applying to colleges. Howard University was her first choice. She wanted to study law, wanted to follow her mother's footsteps. Lena tried not to cry when she read the application essay about watching her mother turn humiliation into systemic change. The monitoring app, officially named EECAT, Equitable Accountability Tool, was adopted by departments in dozens of states. Tint citation disparities dropped sharply in agencies using the platform. The company that developed it hired Lena as an advisory board member. She donated her compensation to civil rights legal defense funds. Travis Harlan's story took an unexpected turn. Months after his resignation, he enrolled in community college. He took Introduction to Sociology. The professor assigned readings about systemic racism. Travis wrote a final paper about his own bias. He got a B+. He sent Lena an email. She didn't respond, but she saved it in a folder labeled Progress. Sometimes people changed, sometimes they didn't, but the possibility mattered. These black stories, these real-life stories of discrimination and resistance happen every single day. Most don't end with reform. Most end with frustration, anger, and silence. But this touching story ended differently because Lena had something most people don't: documentation, authority, and the courage to use both. Have you witnessed selective enforcement, racial profiling? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters. This case proves that change is possible when leaders choose courage over comfort. If this story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to see that quiet power defeats loud injustice every time. Subscribe for more powerful stories of people who used intelligence, data, and dignity to transform broken systems. The most powerful revolutions don't burn things down. They build something better.